The woman everyone expected to break was the only one who stayed standing when the most powerful man in the room lost his balance. The Grand Crescent Ballroom in downtown Dallas glowed beneath enormous crystal chandeliers that scattered golden light across polished marble floors. Hundreds of wealthy donors, executives, politicians, and celebrities filled the annual charity gala with laughter, conversation, and carefully practiced smiles. Every table sparkled with fine glassware. Every corner of the room reflected success. Alicia Brooks moved quietly through the crowd carrying a silver tray filled with sparkling water and champagne. At 28 years old, she had worked enough events to understand the invisible rules. Guests noticed the decorations. They noticed the music. They noticed the people with titles and influence. Rarely did they notice the waitress carrying their drinks. Alicia never complained. She came to work, did her job well, and returned home to her young son each night. That was enough. At least most days. Tonight felt different from the moment Nathan Chun arrived. The billionaire founder of Chun Global Holdings entered the ballroom surrounded by executives and security personnel. At 43 years old, Nathan had built one of the largest investment firms in the country. Financial magazines praised his intelligence. Business networks praised his discipline. Few people ever mentioned his temper. Those who knew him best understood that pressure sometimes pushed him toward impatience. Unfortunately, tonight brought more pressure than usual. A major acquisition was facing unexpected complications. His phone seemed incapable of staying silent for more than 30 seconds. Every conversation carried another problem demanding immediate attention. As the evening continued, frustration slowly replaced composure. Alicia noticed none of this. She simply continued serving guests. Near 9 o'clock, she approached a group gathered around Nathan's table. The conversation there felt tense. Several executives wore worried expressions. Nathan stared at messages on his phone while barely listening to anyone around him. Alicia politely stepped forward and offered refreshments. One guest accepted a glass. Another reached for sparkling water. Then, as Alicia turned slightly, the edge of her tray brushed against Nathan's sleeve. It was barely noticeable. No drink spilled. No glass broke. Yet the interruption arrived at exactly the wrong moment. Nathan looked up sharply. Weeks of stress seemed to explode at once. The surrounding conversations immediately softened. People sensed trouble before a single word was spoken. Nathan stood from his chair. His expression hardened. Alicia froze. Every eye nearby shifted toward them. "Do you have any idea how important this meeting is?" Nathan asked loudly. The room seemed to shrink around the sound of his voice. Alicia immediately apologized. "I am sorry, sir." But the apology did not slow him down. Frustration continued pouring out. Several guests looked away awkwardly. Others watched with uncomfortable fascination. Alicia felt heat rise in her face. She had experienced rude customers before. She had experienced disrespect, but never in front of so many people. The humiliation hung in the air like a storm cloud. Through it all, Alicia remained calm. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She simply stood there holding the tray while hundreds of eyes measured her reaction. Then something unexpected happened. Nathan stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence. His expression changed. The anger disappeared from his face, replaced by confusion. He blinked several times. One hand moved toward the edge of the table. At first, nobody understood what they were seeing. The executives standing beside him exchanged uncertain glances. Nathan attempted to steady himself. The ballroom music continued playing. Conversations paused. Alicia noticed something before anyone else did. The color had drained from his face. His breathing looked different. His posture changed. For a brief second, the entire room seemed frozen between one moment and the next. Nathan reached for support that was no longer there. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Crystal glasses stopped halfway to waiting lips. The powerful billionaire who had dominated the room only moments earlier suddenly looked vulnerable. Completely vulnerable. And while everyone else stood stunned by surprise, Alicia Brooks took a single step forward, her eyes fixed on a problem nobody else had yet recognized. The tray slipped from Alicia Brooks's hands onto a nearby table as she moved forward without hesitation. Around her, confusion spread faster than understanding. Several guests stepped back. Others simply stared. The same people who had watched her humiliation moments earlier now looked completely lost. Nathan Chun remained standing for a brief second longer, his hand gripping the edge of the table as though trying to hold the room still. Then his knees weakened and his balance faltered. Gasps echoed beneath the chandeliers. Alicia reached him first. Years earlier, she had spent countless nights caring for her father during his long struggle with heart-related health problems. She recognized something familiar in Nathan's face. The unusual paleness, the distant look in his eyes, the way his breathing suddenly seemed out of rhythm. Experience had taught her that panic never solved anything. Calm action did. "Call emergency services now," Alicia said firmly. Her voice cut through the confusion. Several people immediately reached for their phones. Others looked relieved that someone seemed to know what to do. Nathan's security team rushed forward, but even they appeared uncertain. They were trained to handle threats. This was something different. Alicia remained focused. The ballroom no longer felt like a glamorous charity event. It felt like a room filled with people waiting for someone to take control. One executive who had been standing beside Nathan earlier finally found his voice. "What happened?" he asked. Alicia shook her head. "I do not know yet, but help is on the way." Nearby guests whispered nervously. Some recognized the seriousness of the situation. Others seemed shocked by the sudden reversal. Only minutes earlier, Nathan had been the center of attention because of his authority. Now he was the center of attention for an entirely different reason. Alicia noticed that his breathing had become steadier, but his expression remained strained. She spoke calmly to him. "Mr. Chun, can you hear me?" For a moment, there was no response. Then his eyes shifted slightly toward her. The movement was small, but it mattered. "Good," Alicia said. "Stay with us." Several members of the gala staff gathered nearby. One of them looked at Alicia with disbelief. "How do you know what to do?" Alicia barely looked up. "My father was sick for years." The answer was simple, honest, yet it carried an entire history behind it. Across the ballroom, the music had stopped completely. The silence felt strange inside a room designed for celebration. Conversations disappeared. Even the city lights beyond the enormous windows seemed distant now. Every person's attention remained fixed on the scene unfolding near Nathan's table. Minutes felt longer than usual. Eventually, the sound of approaching sirens became faintly audible outside. Relief passed through the room. Alicia finally allowed herself a small breath. Nathan's eyes opened slightly wider. For the first time since the incident began, he seemed aware of his surroundings. His gaze moved across the ballroom before settling on Alicia. Recognition appeared slowly. He remembered her. He remembered the uncomfortable exchange only moments earlier. Yet the expression in his eyes had changed completely. Confusion had replaced frustration. Vulnerability had replaced authority. Alicia noticed it immediately. She also noticed something else. Despite everything that had happened, she felt no anger toward him. Life had taught her that people often revealed their worst sides during their hardest moments. It did not excuse poor behavior, but it helped explain it. Emergency responders entered the ballroom moments later and quickly approached. Alicia stepped aside to give them space. They began assessing Nathan while asking questions. One responder glanced toward Alicia. "Who was with him when this started?" Several people pointed toward her at once. The responder nodded appreciatively and continued working. Within minutes, preparations were made to transport Nathan for further evaluation. As the team carefully guided him away, dozens of guests watched in silence. No applause, no gossip, no judgment, just silence. Alicia stood near the edge of the crowd, preparing to return to work as though nothing extraordinary had happened. But she did not notice the way several people were now looking at her. Earlier, they had seen a waitress. Now they were beginning to see something entirely different. While Nathan Chun remained in the hospital, life outside continued moving at its usual pace. Traffic filled the streets of Dallas each morning. Office towers opened their doors. Restaurants welcomed customers. For most people, the events of the gala had already become yesterday's news. For Nathan, they had become impossible to ignore. The hospital room was quiet except for the occasional footsteps in the hallway and the distant hum of activity beyond the door. For the first time in years, he had nowhere to rush. No board meeting demanded his attention. No acquisition required immediate approval. No investor expected a phone call. The lunch meeting stayed in Nathan Chun's mind long after he returned to his office. From the top floor of Chun Global Holdings headquarters, the Dallas skyline stretched across the horizon beneath a brilliant afternoon sky. Normally, the view filled him with motivation. Today it filled him with reflection. For years, success had been measured through numbers. revenue, growth, acquisitions, market value. Yet none of those achievements explained why a conversation inside a small restaurant felt more important than most board meetings he had attended in the past decade. Nathan sat quietly at his desk while executives discussed quarterly forecasts. Their voices blended into the background. His attention kept returning to Alicia Brooks. Not because she had helped him during an emergency, because she had shown him something he had not realized he was missing. Perspective. A few days later, Nathan asked his assistant to gather information about employee wellness programs throughout his companies. The request surprised everyone. Normally, he focused on performance metrics and expansion strategies. Now he wanted reports on stress management, family support resources, and employee assistance programs. The findings were not encouraging. Despite the company's success, many workers struggled with challenges that rarely appeared on financial statements. Caregiving responsibilities, medical expenses, childcare costs, unexpected emergencies. Nathan reviewed every report personally. The stories reminded him of Alicia. People carried invisible burdens every day. Most simply learned how to keep moving. Meanwhile, Alicia continued balancing work and family life. One evening, she attended Marcus's school event where students presented projects about people they admired. Parents filled folding chairs inside the school auditorium. Laughter echoed through the room. When Marcus walked onto the stage, Alicia smiled proudly. Then her smile faded into surprise. His project featured her. Photographs appeared on a screen behind him. Pictures from family gatherings, birthdays, everyday moments. Marcus spoke confidently into the microphone. "My hero is my mom because she helps people even when she is tired." The audience applauded warmly. Alicia felt emotion rise unexpectedly. Children often see truths adults overlook. Later that night, after Marcus had fallen asleep, she found herself thinking about the gala again. Not the embarrassment, not the attention, the lesson. Sometimes life placed people together for reasons impossible to understand in the moment. Across town, Nathan was reaching a similar conclusion. The following week, he invited several senior leaders to a special meeting. No one knew the purpose. Executives entered expecting discussions about investments or corporate strategy. Instead, Nathan shared a story. Not every detail, just enough. He spoke about stress, about assumptions, about the danger of seeing positions instead of people. The room remained unusually quiet. Many leaders had never heard him speak that way before. Then Nathan presented a proposal. A new company initiative focused on supporting employees facing family caregiving challenges. Flexible schedules, emergency assistance resources, expanded support programs. Several executives immediately recognized the potential impact. Others seemed surprised by the sudden change in priorities. Nathan listened carefully before making one final observation. The strongest organizations are built by people who feel valued. No one argued. The proposal moved forward. Weeks passed. Positive responses began arriving from employees throughout the company. Some shared stories of parents receiving medical care. Others described balancing work with raising children. Many expressed gratitude for resources that previously did not exist. Nathan read every message. Each one reinforced the same truth. Compassion was not separate from leadership. It was part of it. One afternoon, while reviewing updates, he received a photograph from the communications department. The image showed employees volunteering together at a community event sponsored by the company. Nathan studied the picture quietly. Success looked different now. Not smaller, bigger, because it included more than profit. As sunlight poured through his office windows, he realized something remarkable. The moment that seemed like the worst night of his year had become the beginning of one of the most important changes in his life. And somewhere across Dallas, Alicia Brooks continued living exactly as she always had, unaware that her example was transforming far more than a single man. The changes inside Chen Global Holdings continued spreading in ways Nathan Chen never anticipated. What began as a single conversation inside a neighborhood restaurant gradually evolved into something larger. Employees talked about the new support programs. Families noticed the difference. Managers started paying closer attention to the challenges people carried beyond the workplace. For the first time in years, Nathan felt that the company was growing in a way no financial report could fully measure. Yet despite everything that had happened, one thing remained unfinished. He had thanked Alicia Brooks privately. He had listened to her story. He had learned from her example. But deep down, he knew that was not enough. One afternoon, while reviewing plans for the upcoming annual community partnership event hosted by Chun Global Holdings, an idea formed in his mind. The event was only 6 weeks away and would bring together employees, business leaders, local charities, educators, and media representatives from across Texas. Every year, the event focused on leadership and community impact. This year, Nathan wanted it to focus on something else: humanity. Meanwhile, Alicia remained unaware of what was being planned. Her days looked much the same as before. Morning routines with Marcus, long shifts at work, bills to pay, homework to supervise. Life rarely paused long enough to admire its own progress. One Friday evening, as she finished cleaning a table near the restaurant window, her manager approached carrying an envelope. "This came for you," he said. Alicia looked surprised. The envelope was simple, elegant, and bore the logo of Chun Global Holdings. Curious, she opened it carefully. Inside was a formal invitation requesting her presence at the upcoming community partnership event as a special guest. Alicia immediately frowned. There had to be a mistake. She reread the invitation twice. The wording remained unchanged. Her manager smiled. "Looks real to me." Alicia laughed nervously. "I think they sent this to the wrong person." But a phone call 2 days later confirmed otherwise. The invitation was intentional. Very intentional. The evening of the event arrived beneath a brilliant Texas sunset. Hundreds of guests filled the convention center ballroom. Community leaders mingled with business executives. Volunteers spoke with educators. Families filled the audience. Unlike the gala where everything began, the atmosphere felt warmer, more authentic, less concerned with status. Alicia arrived wearing a simple navy blue dress. Marcus walked proudly beside her. Neither knew exactly why they had been invited. Across the room, Nathan noticed them immediately. He greeted them personally and escorted them to reserved seats near the front. Alicia remained confused. "What is all this?" she asked quietly. Nathan smiled. "You will see." The program began with speeches about service, leadership, and community partnerships. Several charitable organizations shared stories about lives changed through support programs and volunteer efforts. Then Nathan stepped onto the stage. The room gradually fell silent. Giant screens illuminated behind him. For a moment, he simply looked across the audience. Then, he began speaking. He talked about success. He talked about pressure. He talked about mistakes. The honesty in his voice surprised many people. Eventually, he described a night that changed his perspective. Without dramatizing the event, he explained how one person's compassion revealed lessons he should have learned years earlier. Guests listened carefully. Some already knew where the story was going. Many did not. Then Nathan looked directly toward Alicia. "The person who taught me those lessons is here tonight." The audience turned. Alicia's eyes widened. Marcus looked equally shocked. Nathan continued. "She reminded me that character matters more than status, that kindness requires courage, and that the people we overlook often have the most to teach us." The room erupted into applause. Alicia sat frozen in disbelief. Around her, hundreds of strangers stood to their feet. Yet the most meaningful moment was not the applause itself. It was the look on Marcus's face as he watched an entire room recognize the woman he had always considered a hero. For several seconds after the applause began, Alicia Brooks could not move. Hundreds of people stood throughout the ballroom. Community leaders, executives, volunteers, educators, families, all applauding for a woman who had arrived expecting to sit quietly in the audience. Beside her, Marcus stared across the room with wide eyes. The expression on his face said more than any speech ever could. Pride. Pure pride. Nathan Chin remained on stage, waiting patiently as the applause gradually softened. Then he spoke again. "There is one more thing." The audience settled back into their seats. Alicia had a feeling she was not going to enjoy whatever came next. Nathan smiled slightly as if he already knew what she was thinking. "A few months ago, our company began expanding support programs for employees facing family caregiving responsibilities. Many people praised the initiative. The truth is that the idea did not begin in a boardroom." Several guests nodded thoughtfully. Nathan continued. "It began with a conversation that reminded me leadership is not about power. It is about responsibility." Giant screens behind him displayed photographs from community projects, volunteer events, and employee support programs that had launched during the previous months. Stories appeared beside the images. Parents who received assistance, caregivers who gained flexible schedules, families who avoided financial crises because help arrived when it was needed most. Alicia watched quietly. She had no idea how many lives had been affected. Then Nathan revealed the final announcement. Tonight we are launching a new initiative dedicated to recognizing ordinary people whose acts of compassion create extraordinary change. The audience listened carefully. The program will support caregivers, single parents, community volunteers, and individuals who strengthen their neighborhoods through service and kindness. Another screen appeared behind him. Large letters filled the ballroom. The Alicia Brooks Community Impact Fund. Gasps echoed throughout the room. Alicia immediately shook her head in disbelief. Marcus nearly jumped out of his seat. Nathan smiled as laughter rippled through the audience. I had a feeling that would be her reaction. More laughter followed. Alicia covered her face briefly while trying unsuccessfully to hide her embarrassment. Yet emotion quickly replaced it. She looked around the ballroom and saw people smiling warmly. Not because of money, not because of status, because they understood the message behind the recognition. When Nathan invited her onto the stage, she hesitated. The crowd encouraged her with applause. Finally, she stood and slowly walked forward. Marcus followed closely beside her. The audience rose once again. This time the applause felt different. Softer. More personal. Nathan stepped aside as Alicia reached the center of the stage. For a moment, she looked completely overwhelmed. Then she noticed Marcus standing nearby. His smile gave her courage. A microphone was placed in her hand. The ballroom became silent. Hundreds of people waited. Alicia glanced around the room before speaking. I do not know what to say. Laughter spread gently through the audience. I never expected any of this. She paused. The truth is that there are thousands of people doing kind things every day that nobody sees. Parents taking care of children. Neighbors helping neighbors. Friends supporting friends. Most of them never receive awards. The room remained completely still. Her words carried a sincerity impossible to manufacture. If this fund helps people like them, then that matters more than having my name on it. Applause returned immediately. Even Nathan found himself blinking back emotion. Once again, Alicia had shifted attention away from herself and toward others. It was exactly what made her remarkable. As the evening continued, guests gathered around to congratulate her. Community organizations discussed future partnerships. Volunteers shared stories. Families expressed gratitude. Yet the most meaningful moment happened much later. As the event ended and guests slowly departed, Marcus slipped his hand into his mother's and looked up at her. I told everyone at school you were a hero, he said. Alicia smiled. I am just your mom. Marcus shook his head confidently. You are both. And standing beneath the fading ballroom lights, surrounded by people whose lives would soon be changed by the fund bearing her name, Alicia realized that sometimes the greatest impact comes from simply choosing kindness when nobody expects it. 6 months later, the impact of that evening could be seen far beyond the walls of any ballroom or boardroom. Across Texas, families received assistance through the Alicia Brooks Community Impact Fund. Single parents found resources during difficult seasons. Caregivers gained support while helping loved ones through medical challenges. Community volunteers received grants that allowed local projects to grow. Stories of kindness multiplied in ways nobody could have predicted. Yet if anyone asked Alicia Brooks whether her life had changed, her answer remained surprisingly simple. She still woke before sunrise. She still prepared breakfast for Marcus. She still worked hard. She still believed that helping others was not extraordinary. It was necessary. One bright Saturday morning, Alicia stood beside Marcus at a neighborhood community center hosting the first annual celebration for recipients of the fund. Children played outside beneath clear blue skies. Volunteers organized activities. Families gathered around picnic tables covered with food and laughter. The atmosphere felt nothing like the glamorous gala where everything had begun. It felt real, human, genuine. Nathan Chin arrived without a large entourage or media attention. Over the previous months, something about him had changed in a way even his closest colleagues noticed. He still led a successful company. He still made difficult decisions. But the impatience that once defined him appeared less often. He listened more. He noticed more. He remembered names. The transformation was not dramatic. It was something far more powerful. It was authentic. As he walked through the event, dozens of families greeted him warmly. Yet the moment that stayed with him happened near a small playground at the edge of the park. A young mother approached carrying her toddler. She explained that assistance from the fund helped her remain employed while caring for an ill parent. Tears filled her eyes as she thanked him. Nathan smiled politely before shaking his head. "You should thank Alicia." The woman looked confused. Nathan pointed across the park. Alicia was helping a group of children organize a game. Laughing, smiling, completely unaware she was being discussed. "She is the reason any of this exists," Nathan said quietly. Later that afternoon, as the celebration began winding down, Nathan and Alicia found themselves standing together near a row of oak trees. Families packed up picnic baskets. Children chased one another across the grass. The golden light of late afternoon stretched long shadows across the park. For a few moments, neither spoke. Then Nathan broke the silence. "Do you remember that night?" Alicia laughed softly. "Which part?" Nathan smiled. "Fair question." They both knew exactly what he meant. The gala, the humiliation, the emergency, the beginning of everything that followed. Nathan looked across the park toward the families enjoying the event. "I thought my life changed because of what happened to me." He paused. "Now I realize it changed because of what you chose to do afterward." Alicia considered his words carefully. Then she shook her head. "No." Nathan looked surprised. Alicia pointed toward the crowd. "This happened because people decided to keep helping each other." Nathan followed her gaze. Volunteers, parents, children, neighbors, community leaders, hundreds of ordinary people creating something meaningful together. Once again, Alicia redirected credit away from herself. It was exactly what she had done from the beginning. As the sun slowly dipped toward the horizon, Marcus ran across the grass and joined them. Without hesitation, he grabbed his mother's hand. Nathan smiled. The sight seemed to summarize everything he had learned. Success mattered. Achievement mattered. But relationships mattered more. Character mattered more. Humanity mattered more. The evening sky turned shades of gold and orange above the park as families began heading home. Laughter lingered in the air. Hope lingered too. And somewhere within that simple moment existed the true ending of the story. Not a billionaire learning humility. Not a waitress receiving recognition. But a reminder that one act of compassion can travel farther than anyone imagines. Money gave Nathan influence. Kindness gave Alicia impact. Only one of those continued growing long after the moment itself had passed. And on the day they said goodbye beneath the Texas sunset, both of them understood the same truth. The strongest people are not the ones who stand above others. They are the ones who choose kindness when they have every reason not to.